The memory was still fresh, even after 10 years. My daughter Amelia had come home from third grade with tears streaming down her face, clutching a crumpled career day form. "Mrs. Henderson says I shouldn't put doctor," she'd whispered. "She says kids from our background don't go to college. She said I should pick something more realistic." I'd held my 8-year-old while she sobbed, feeling rage build in my chest like a physical thing. In that moment, I made 2 decisions. First, I would never let anyone make my daughter feel small again. Second, Mrs. Henderson would one day eat those words. Now, a decade later, I smoothed my academic robes and adjusted the microphone at Lincoln High School's graduation ceremony. 2,000 people filled the auditorium, students, parents, faculty. And there, in the third row with the other district teachers, sat Mrs. Patricia Henderson. She hadn't recognized me yet. Why would she? 10 years ago, I'd been the welfare mom who showed up to parent-teacher conferences in discount store clothes, exhausted from double shifts. The single mother from the projects who Mrs. Henderson had written off before Amelia even opened her mouth. "Thank you, Principal Martinez," I said into the microphone. "It's an honor to address Lincoln High's graduating class of 2024. A few teachers shifted, probably wondering why they didn't recognize the guest speaker. The program listed me as Dr. Grace Thompson, CEO of Thompson Educational Enterprises. They had no idea Dr. Thompson was the same Grace from Apartment 4B who they'd dismissed as another statistic. "Before I begin," I continued, letting my eyes find Mrs. Henderson, "I want to tell you about a conversation that changed my life. 10 years ago, a teacher told my 8-year-old daughter that kids from her background don't go to college. That she should dream smaller, expect less, accept limitations based on our zip code and my marital status." Mrs. Henderson had gone very still. That teacher meant to be realistic, perhaps even kind in her way. But what she really did was light a fire that's burned for a decade. I clicked the remote, and the screen behind me lit up with a photo. Amelia at 8, holding that crumpled career day form. Then another photo, Amelia at 18, holding her early acceptance letter to Harvard Medical School. Gasps rippled through the audience. Early admission to Harvard Med was almost unheard of. "You see," I said, now looking directly at Mrs. Henderson, what that teacher didn't know was that the welfare mom she'd dismissed had already earned her first PhD in molecular biology. I was working night shifts at the grocery store, yes, but days I was completing postdoctoral research. The food stamps she sneered at were feeding a future doctor and the woman who would eventually revolutionize educational assessment protocols. The presentation clicked through my journey. The second PhD in educational psychology, earned while Amelia was in middle school. The third in business administration, completed just 2 years ago. The patents for learning assessment software that had made me millions. The quiet acquisition of educational companies, including, and this was the moment I'd waited for, the holding company that owned the private contractors managing this very school district. "Last month," I said conversationally, "Thompson Educational Enterprises completed its acquisition of Pinnacle Learning Systems. For those unfamiliar, Pinnacle manages the educational services, hiring, and assessment protocols for 12 school districts, including this one." Principal Martinez's eyes widened. Several school board members in the front row exchanged glances. "Which makes me effectively your boss's boss's boss." I smiled. Surprise. The auditorium was dead silent. But I'm not here to talk about corporate structures. I'm here to talk about potential. About teachers who see it and nurture it, and those who try to crush it based on assumptions and bias. I clicked to the next slide. Statistics filled the screen. In the past 10 years, while building my companies, I've also run a nonprofit. We track students who were told they'd never amount to anything. The ones dismissed because of their background, their parents' income, their zip code. Would you like to know what happened to them? The numbers spoke for themselves. Hundreds of students told they were unrealistic or didn't have the background for higher education. With mentorship and support, 87% had gone to college, 60% to graduate school. They were doctors, lawyers, engineers, teachers. Everything they'd been told they couldn't be. My daughter Amelia is one of them. Despite being told at 8 years old that medical school was an impossible dream, she graduates today not just with highest honors, but with early admission to Harvard Medical School and a full scholarship from the Thompson Foundation. Applause erupted. Amelia, sitting with her classmates in their caps and gowns, covered her face with her hands. I could see her shoulders shaking, tears, but the good kind this time. And she's not alone. I clicked through more photos. David Martinez, told he wasn't college material because his parents didn't speak English, heading to MIT. Jennifer Wu, dismissed as too distracted because she worked nights to help her family. Full ride to Yale Law. Marcus Johnson, written off because his address was in the projects, just signed with Goldman Sachs. Each name, each face, each triumph over low expectations. The audience was riveted. Which brings me to why I really came today. I found Mrs. Henderson again. She looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Mrs. Henderson, would you please stand? Every head in the auditorium turned. She rose slowly, her face flushed. 10 years ago, you told my daughter she shouldn't dream of being a doctor. Do you remember what you said when I challenged you? Her voice was barely audible. I said. You said, let's be honest about what's realistic for people in your situation. My voice carried clearly through the speakers. You said a lot of things about her background and statistics and setting achievable goals. I was trying to. You were trying to limit an 8-year-old's dreams based on your assumptions about her mother. I let that hang in the air. Tell me, Mrs. Henderson, do you still believe kids from that background can't be doctors? She shook her head mutely. I can't hear you. No, she said louder. I was wrong. Yes, I agreed. You were. But here's the thing, you weren't alone. This entire system, these entire assumptions about who deserves to dream big and who should be realistic, they're baked into how we teach, how we guide, how we systematically lower expectations for students based on factors that have nothing to do with their potential. I clicked to my final slide. It was a photo of my tiny apartment from 10 years ago. Amelia doing homework at a card table. Me studying for my comprehensive exams by the light of a desk lamp I'd found at Goodwill. This is where Harvard Medical School's newest student grew up. This is where 3 PhDs were earned. This is where a multi-million-dollar educational empire was planned. Not in spite of these circumstances, because of them. Because when you've been told you can't, proving you can becomes a mission. I paused, letting it sink in. So to the graduates here today, especially those who've been told to dream smaller, aim lower, be realistic. Let me tell you what's realistic. It's realistic to work harder than everyone else because you have more to prove. It's realistic to turn every slight into motivation. It's realistic to remember every teacher who believed in you, and everyone who didn't. The applause started slowly, then built to thunder. Students were on their feet. Parents were crying. Even some teachers were standing. And to the educators here, I continued when the noise died down, you have a choice. You can be the teacher who changes a life by believing in potential, or the one who becomes a cautionary tale in someone's success story. Mrs. Henderson knows which one she became. Mrs. Henderson sat down heavily, her face a portrait of regret. But here's the plot twist, I said, softening my tone. Mrs. Henderson's dismissal of my daughter? It was the best thing that ever happened to us. It made Amelia hungrier, made me more determined, made us both unstoppable. So in a way, I should thank you, Patricia. Your lack of faith created a doctor and a CEO. I turned back to the graduates. Class of 2024, you're entering a world that will try to put you in boxes based on where you're from, what you look like, who your parents are. Some of you have already experienced this. Some have been told you're not college material, that your dreams are too big, that you should be realistic. I smiled, thinking of Amelia at 8, crying over that crumpled form. Be unrealistic. Be impossible. Be everything they said you couldn't be. And then come back and buy the whole damn school district. The laughter that followed was cathartic. Principal Martinez was shaking his head in amazement. The school board members were having hushed, urgent conversations, probably about their new boss's boss's boss. In closing, I said, I want to announce something. Thompson Educational Enterprises will be launching a new initiative in this district. Any student who's been told they can't achieve their dreams because of their background can apply for full scholarship support. Not just for college, but for tutoring, test prep, even basic necessities that might stand in their way. More applause, but I raised my hand for silence. There's one condition. Each scholarship recipient must write a letter to the teacher who told them they couldn't make it. Not a vindictive letter, a thank you note. Because sometimes the best motivation comes from people who don't believe in us. I found Amelia's eyes in the crowd. She was openly crying now, but smiling through the tears. My daughter will be the first recipient. Her letter to Mrs. Henderson will thank her for the motivation that got her to Harvard Medical School, for the fire that made her study harder, push further, Dream bigger than any realistic goal could have contained. As I concluded my speech and returned to my seat, the standing ovation was deafening. But the sweetest sound was Amelia's name being called for her diploma. My baby girl, the one who'd been told she'd never amount to anything, walked across that stage with the confidence of someone who'd already proven the world wrong. After the ceremony, Mrs. Henderson approached me. She looked older than her years, worn down by the weight of realizing how many dreams she might have crushed over her career. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "I thought I was protecting her from disappointment." "You were protecting yourself from having to believe in her," I corrected. "It's easier to lower expectations than to fight for them to be met." "What happens now? With my job, I mean. Since you own." "You keep teaching," I said, surprising her. "But you take mandatory training in unconscious bias and educational equity. You mentor 5 students from backgrounds you'd normally write off. And you report directly to my team on their progress. Why not just fire me? Because you're going to become the teacher you should have been all along. The one who sees potential instead of problems. Consider it your own unrealistic goal." As she walked away, Amelia found me in the crowd. My daughter, my Harvard-bound baby girl, hugged me tight. "That was savage, Mom." She laughed through fresh tears. "Did you really buy the whole district?" "Just the management company. But she doesn't need to know the details." I kissed her forehead. "I'm so proud of you, baby. So proud." "Mom." She pulled back to look at me. "What you did, building all of this while I was growing up. How did I not know? You knew what mattered. That I loved you, believed in you, and would burn down the world if anyone tried to make you feel small." I smiled. The rest was just details. We stood there, graduate and CEO, daughter and mother. Proof that the only background that matters is the one you're willing to work for. Later that evening, as we celebrated at home, the house I'd bought with my first patent proceeds, not the apartment Mrs. Henderson remembered, I pulled out a frame. Inside was the crumpled career day form from 3rd grade, the one where Amelia had written doctor in defiant 8-year-old handwriting. "You kept it?" Amelia asked, amazed. "Of course. It's the document that started an empire." I handed it to her. "For your Harvard dorm room. To remember that the only person who gets to decide what you can't do is you." She hugged me again, and I thought about all the Mrs. Hendersons out there, all the kids being told to dream smaller, all the fires waiting to be lit by someone's disbelief. Thompson Educational Enterprises had work to do. But tonight we celebrated. The welfare mom with 3 PhDs and the daughter heading to Harvard Medical School. Living proof that the best revenge against low expectations is a life that exceeds them all. And somewhere in the city, Mrs. Henderson was probably updating her resume to include cultural competency training and equity in education. She'd learn. They all would. Because Grace Thompson from apartment 4B hadn't just succeeded. She'd bought the whole system that tried to keep her down. And she was just getting started.